I started playing Minecraft in 2013. I began on Pocket Edition and started building right away. I followed a few Corrales tutorials, watched some Vita below, and was so inspired to begin creating art of my own in Minecraft. When I finally got Java Edition that same year, I knew that I just had to be a builder. I joined a creative server and I started going up through the building ranks that were there. This plot that you're seeing here is my first ever attempt at something bigger than just a house. So this is my first ever kingdom build. It definitely has quite a few flaws, but I just love it so much. I've made so many memories here. Today I would like to go ahead and transform this idea and how I would build it today in 2019. We're starting out on this plot with some pre-made terrain. I just wanted it to look like a plains biome. Originally, when I created this build, I had no concept of terrain at all, so it was just completely flat with a few areas that I added in after. I didn't want to do this again, so some pretty simple terrain does the trick, and then we can move on to our centerpiece. For the centerpiece, I am going to be using World Edit to create a big tree. In 2013, I did not have any concept of how World Edit works at all, and it took me 3 months to build the tree that's on that plot with no commands. Now, I really don't have that kind of time. I'm not in high school anymore, I'm in university now, and time is limiting. I love that World Edit allows me to create these big works of art in Minecraft fairly quickly. I can get the results I want much more swiftly, and I really enjoy it. To me, it's almost like painting or sculpting in real life. It's something that I really love about the game, and it makes me so happy. Once this centerpiece of a tree is complete and I am happy with it, we're going to move on to a little bit of planning. Something that I didn't do in the original build, and it's evident. The original build is pretty much complete chaos. I don't want to repeat this, so I'm going to plan it out a little bit and then move on to the dragon. Like with any organic, I start with some simple wireframing of the dragon so that I can get its shape in place before I move on to anything a little more serious. The dragon on the original plot was pretty much just plopped right on top of the tree. I think I sort of just wanted to show off and say that I could do a dragon, so I put one there, but it seems very out of place and random, and it's definitely not scaled with the build. So I wanted to make this dragon fit in a little better, so I had it curving itself around the tree, and I still colored it pretty much the same in that forest dragon feel. Dragons are always so challenging for me to shape. I particularly struggle with the legs and the wings, so I had to go back over these areas a few times just to make sure that I could get the shapes correct. But once everything is finally filled in, it's so worth it, and having a dragon fly over the build is always epic, and something that I still love today. The dragon is going to be those classic green colors for a forest dragon, and it'll be detailed appropriately for that theme. Now we can move down to the houses. On the original plot, I'm sure you will notice, if you are also building in 2013 and 2014, I followed a lot of tutorials and looked online at YouTubers for all of my inspiration back then. And so, as a result, I didn't have any sort of palette that I was following. I wasn't really locked into any theme, although mostly I was doing medieval, even though I was trying to go for Elven. I didn't really know what I was doing. So on this build, I'm going to be applying some consistency to my buildings. Everything's going to have that same palette, and everything's going to have the same theme, which is pretty much just a mixture of like a medieval fantasy with a wood elven sort of flair. Hopefully this comes across throughout the build. This big gazebo is such a funny asset on the other plot. Oh my goodness, I can't believe the amount of chaos that I managed to fit into one build. I basically just used every block that was available to me. I think that's still a trait that I have today, but I've toned it down a little bit. Now, moving on to a big church. I put this in pretty much the exact same placement as the old one, and I tried to go for a very similar style with a bunch of different buildings sort of connected together. And then, right next to the church, a farm. I know, random. Not how I would lay it out today, but you know what? It kind of works, actually. It's not the worst thing in the world. Although the windmill is a little underwhelming next to a big church, it still looks good. And a farm in any place is always gonna be just a happy, nice place to be. Next to the farm, I'm going to do some stables. On the original plot, I was inspired by B Double O to create a barn, but a barn doesn't make a whole lot of sense on this plot. I think stables for visitors to leave their horses at is just more logical. One more small house on the back of this tree, lots of detailing going on here. One of my favorite things about the original plot is the fact that every single house you'll see has interior, which is definitely not something that I've continued today. Moving on to the dock area. Oh, this ended up being one of my absolute favorite areas. It's got a slipway, a little wharf, and then two larger buildings on it, one which features a crane, and in the middle of them, just to add something besides crates to this dock, there is a ship being built, which I think adds to the feeling so well, and also allows you to be a little bit lazy because you don't have to build, a whole ship. You just gotta build a half-constructed one, which is quite a lot easier. With the addition of some crates and another little shed, this dock is finished and we can move on to lots more houses. I want this plot to be just as filled in as the last one, and although it's not going to look as chaotic, I still want there to be lots of original house designs in different shapes and sizes. And in order to get across this river, originally I had two bridges. Two bridges on this small of a plot is a little bit overkill, I will admit, but I must have really liked bridges back then. Although my river is a lot bigger now, I think it gives a much better effect being wider and having this diagonal bridge and two houses. Now it's time to go back to a couple of our buildings and add some of those final details that really make the entire plot come together. Oh my goodness, this was just so much fun to do. It was so fun to think back to how I was building things in 2013 and try and get in my own headspace. At that time, I was building on a creative server, so I would have my friends stop by, and every house pretty much on that original plot has a different name on a sign on it, which is just so funny. Something that was very popular back in that time was the steampunk style, and that's what we're seeing a little bit of here with these hot air balloons for sure. I was definitely inspired to add some, and I even had some steampunk style houses on the original plot. I decided to omit the steampunk style, mixed in with the wood elven, mixed in with the medieval. That's a little far, but I did add hot air balloons because I do think they're cute, especially with the little tree design. Going back in and adding a little fountain, some benches, and some extra details to our gazebo to finish that up, and then we're finally going to focus our attention back on the center tree. On the original plot, the tree is definitely the most important factor, and it's pretty impressive. The interior of it has marketplaces, so that's once again what I went for here, and it is also the access up into the top of the tree. The top of the tree within the branches, if you can see through them, is actually an Elven style tree house. And you could walk all along the branches to get to little huts, so that's exactly what I wanted to do here with this feeling. I adore how this plot came out in the end, and I hope all of you like it too. Let's go explore it a little bit further, shall we? Alright everyone, before I end this video, I wanted to take you on a small little tour in-game in this plot, because originally this is how I viewed this plot. I had no replay mod, I had no alternate accounts. I was just here in-game chilling on this plot quite a lot. And I can see why I used to enjoy doing this, because To be honest, this view is a pretty satisfying one. I think the tree next to these tall houses, the blacksmith, oh my goodness, I mean, it really brings it together. Being able to look on a player scale view and see all of the barrels and the lights and everything on your street view, but then still be able to look all the way up overhead and see the dragon flying over and the big tree that you can access from the center. It's just so epic. Let's go in this house here. This is sort of a herbal shop that I have done. So you can see I've added lots of books. I wanted this to be kind of a elven healing center. So we've got lots of different flowers and plants that they're studying, some brewing stands, some books, an area with a fireplace over here. This is where the people in this area could come and get some healing. There's also a small upstairs area, but I really like the quirkiness of this building overall, and I kind of made it evident that this is one of those places by leaking some nether wart out into this area. And it's got that quirky fireplace going and curving through it, which I think definitely adds to that. Let's head over towards the church now, where I've done some more interior. We could turn off there for the farm, but we are going to continue right through here. Close the door behind us. And here we are inside the church. I love what I did in here. I think it definitely has that epic church-like feeling, and I could see somebody giving a service here to the villagers. I'm not sure what wood elves worship, but hopefully this makes some sort of sense for them. I kind of modeled it off of churches that I go to in real life, so those would be Christian. Oh my goodness, this view is so much fun with the hot air balloons floating and the big tree with the sun flares. I could stay here all day, I think. The stables is another pretty important area in this entire village. I wanted it to be an area where people could kind of come by and drop off their horses if they were traveling and resting somewhere. So I just kind of made this open area for horses to be kept. I also did the inside. Nothing complicated going on in here, just some storage and an area for the barn hands, or stable hands in this case, to sleep. We're coming to the bridge now. Oh my goodness, crossing these bridges is always so relaxing. I love that now in the newer versions of the games we have seagrass that we can actually put in the water. Before, the only real option was lily pads and sugarcane, and sugarcane's a little bright for the feeling that I'm going for here. Let's head inside this house right here. This one I just did like a typical plain old house. So we enter into a kitchen and sort of dining area. I think these guys have got like one of the absolute best views in the whole entire village, even though they are across the river. Got some cupboards above our heads, and over here we've just got a pretty simple living room. Once again, best view in the village. There's no argument for that. I love this house, and I think if I lived in this village, this is the one that I would choose, which is why I have chosen to do some decorating to it. It's just so quaint and cute, and I mean, I don't have enough words. It's wonderful. I imagine if this was a real place, kids could come down here to the river and play in the water because it's so shallow and it's just a slow flowing river that enters out into the ocean where there's only a few small ships leaving. This is such a dreamy area to be able to play and grow up, and it's so inspiring for me to be able to write lore in this area because, let's be honest, it'd be pretty cool to write a story about who lived here. Overall, I am so extremely happy with how this build turned out. I think I was definitely able to do my 2013 self justice with all of the new skills that I have learned over the last 6 years. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining me on this journey. 2013 was also the year that I began uploading on this channel for the first time. Thank you so much for over 100,000 subscribers. I am so grateful to all of you who watch this channel and support me in learning how to do this YouTube thing, get through university, and hopefully become some sort of better artist from this whole Minecraft thing. Thank you so much. I hope I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye, everyone.